So Mythpat is here, and it's not an AI version, sorry, but he's just here to say hi, and we proceed in the video now.
Bye.
You know, the problem with doing a lot of shots, and I've been doing a lot of shots, right? It's just very, very convenient. It takes 5-6 minutes a week. The problem is you start irritating people after a while because it's impossible to give too much context in a minute. And I know this is what social media has become. We all consume shots. We're all absorbing so much of, Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts that we've forgotten long form even exists. But I think that going forward, it's important for me to keep doing some long form, even if it's once a week, once in 2 weeks. Because I'm learning a lot more about the ecosystem now, and the ecosystem in tech has changed in India and all across the world. And nobody's really speaking the truth. Because if you go on Twitter, and this has started to happen to me on Twitter and many other founders on Twitter, where you sort of become frozen. You put 2 lines, and in 2 lines, you're going to say something, and then it's going to piss off millions of people, right? And they're going to be people who don't even know you, who come and start eating your head. And the problem with Twitter is if you say something that's truthful but feels unfair, you are going to get hated. For example, there was Didi who went out and said that it's easier to have maidservants in India than the US because maidservants in India are paid much less compared to how much, let's say, a family household makes. And he really got lambasted for it, even though it's the truth, right? This, you could call it the negative of India or the positive of India, but he wasn't talking about that. He was just like, this is the truth. In America, it's very expensive to hire a maidservant or a driver, and therefore it doesn't happen as often. He just mentioned the truth, and he got the comments were not very kind. And I think it's also because on Twitter, you can only put in so many words. People are just going to see the first tweet. They're not even going to see the rest of the tweets. So you are going to get hate on that first tweet. But with YouTube, we have the opportunity to go long form. I have the opportunity to tell you over 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however long this takes, what I really think and what the nuances are. And I think the world needs more of nuance. The word nuance means, let me show you more about this. What is the unique things about this that you can't just strip down into a sentence, right? So let's go deeper into everything. And this show, whatever I'm doing, I just want to call it This Week in Tech. I just want to go over tech. I just want to give you my thoughts on it. And I want to give you my unfiltered thoughts on it, right? Some of them will not be super kind, but I will tell you anyway. And I'll just tell you what we've been up to. I can also discuss stuff that I've been up to, which I have not done in a very, very long time because the business building side of thing has been just taking all my time. But let's start with the first thing. I think you might have all seen this deepfake of Nitin Kamath. It was on money control and lots of different news. And AI is sort of coming for KYC. KYC is Know Your Customer. Whenever you sign up on a Zerodha or platforms like that, you need to sort of take a photo or a video of yourself saying, it is me, Varun, actually here. But now that you can create deepfakes of anybody, right? Or AI avatars of anybody, you sort of get into the situation where you can fool these things. And you'll probably see this in the podcast I've done with Nitin, and we helped them with it. We used HeyGen for the video, and I think we are now entering an era where it's going to be very hard to differentiate. You can't easily tell between what's a real video and what's a fake video, and it's definitely going to affect the elections. And I think everyone watching this, I really just hope you develop an immune system. I'm going to keep reinforcing this, but develop an immune system. And the second thing I want to cover, which I think it's just sad that this is happening, but sometimes I go to Reddit and I will see these Indian developer groups. And on the Indian developer groups, I'm always seeing people who are like, 19, 20-year-olds, really hopeful, remind me of myself when I was young. I have so much empathy for these people. And they will be posting things like, I'm doing the right portfolio projects, I've learned the right stack, my interview skills are good, I'm going to a decent college, why am I not getting a job? And this is a very common thing, right? And people think eventually that is their fault. Like these young kids think it's their fault. It's sad that people are making it about that when I think the most obvious thing, and this is, from my learning, because I empathize with these people because I was a young engineer learning skills in college. But there is a very specific insight I want to tell you, which I hope might be useful to you. And it's, again, my opinion. When I was young and when I was in college, what I was being taught was ASP.NET and Java. That's right. I was studying computer science in Manipal Institute of Technology, and we were taught ASP.NET and Java, which, by the way, at the time that I was learning them, already old. But my teacher said, this is the market. This is what the market wants. And the truth is that it was what the market wanted, but it was sort of on the tail end. There was already saturated market. And I taught myself Ruby on Rails because it just seemed cool at that time, and Ruby on Rails just seemed simple. And I had an internet connection. So I said, why not teach myself Ruby on Rails? So I taught myself Ruby on Rails, and the kind of opportunities I got in Ruby on Rails online freelancing was great. And it was very different from the kind of opportunities you'd get if you're doing ASP.NET. And I feel we are exactly there now. Now we have a bunch of engineers who are super specialized in a framework, React or Flutter or whatever it is, right? And they're like, this is the way. This is where demand is. But the problem is the demand supply curve constantly changes. And I've been vocal about this, at least with software, that we're just producing too many software engineers and they're all doing the same thing. See, software is a vast field. Everything from AI to blockchain to game development, it all comes under software, right? And game development, you can't use React to make games. You probably have to use an Unreal Engine or Unity if you want to make serious games. There's a plethora of options of what you can learn and what you can become. But everyone wants to go and become a front-end engineer. I agree. It's very cool to be a front-end engineer, and all the memes and the content on the internet are about it. But also you have broken the supply-demand curve. I can tell you that for sure. Because when I put up postings to hire people, even people in sales and things like that, we'll have people who have studied front-end engineering, who know React or something like that. And they're like, no, I want to be, I want to get this role because I'm not getting a job otherwise. We're producing too many of these people. And the thing is, there's no problem with producing too many of these people, because if you're in the top 1%, top 5%, you'll still get a job. You will be excellent, your portfolio will be excellent. We will still hire somebody in the top 1, 5, 10%, right? But the problem is, if you're not that good, then you have to look for other places where somebody will give you a chance, an opportunity. Because sometimes you may be good, but you may be undiscovered. And therefore your CV will never say anything awesome because no reasonable company has taken a bet on you yet. So what I found is maybe switching slightly, like going from building apps to building games. It's not such a big leap. Sure, there are a lot of things you need to learn. You need to understand the entire 3D modeling and design side, but look for empty niches. This is a Warren Buffett story, right? Like when people are being fearful, be greedy. When people are being greedy, be fearful. And I think we've just been extremely greedy, all of us, about, we want to get into a particular front-end job, and you oversaturated the market. And not to say that there are a plethora of colleges right now that are coming out just, it's all the same degree. And they're just overproducing people. And you're seeing that in the effects, on the downstream effects of placements. Because also remember, you need enough people on the other end, right, who are working at a company that's hired a TCS. You need enough client demand also. And there simply isn't enough client demand. Especially in India, we've learned a lot about software, which hopefully I can come to, as we keep chatting. I don't think you building a pure software company in India will work. You can export it outside, yes. And there are some B2C use cases where it'll work, but most of it needs a moat that's not really software. Zomato has a moat in logistics. They have one of the best logistics networks out there. Same with Amazon. So I think you really need some advantage, and software is a good scaler or an enabler. Like, what does software really help you do if you're building a food delivery company? Because people can pick up the phone and they can also dial, let's say, a central operator, and the operator says, okay, what food do you want? And I say Chinese. And the person on the other end says, well, here are the 5 Chinese options, 5 Chinese restaurants, and here are the best options. And you could respond and you say, I want option 1 or option 2 or whatever, right? Why app? Because app makes it frictionless. It makes it faster, and most importantly, it allows you to really onboard people at scale. You can bring on as many restaurants, it's all in one view. You don't need the operator. But what this really unlocks for you is scale. It's distribution. It's the ability to go much faster. And that's why tech valuations were so high. Tech growth was so high, because it's just that if this thing works, it goes from 0 to 1 very quickly. Then it goes from 1 to n very quickly, 1 to 100 very quickly. This is not true for an agency. Let's say you start a marketing agency tomorrow, like every kid wants to do it. मुझे freelance करना है, मुझे agency चलाना है. I'll tell you the problem with an agency. Even if you do it well, you get stuck after your 3rd or 4th client. Right? I've seen this so many times in my life that I just know it's like, this is evident, right? Because at your 3rd and 4th client, all the very motivated founders of your agency, all the people at the top are like, I love doing this. This is great. I'm getting clients. I'm making money. But the minute you start hiring other people, they're simply not as motivated. They simply don't care about the thing as much. So keeping their motivation, many of them will keep quitting. You have to maintain their morale. And getting new clients is now a sales thing. It's not just your network. You need to go out and start selling to clients. It starts becoming complicated to scale. And it's always hard to scale things when every new client you bring on, you need to hire a new person. Right? It's just hard. And that's the reason that people choose to go the product route, because it scales much faster. It's a little bit easier to scale. At least engineers on the internet in India forgot that. They thought it wasn't about that, it's about building pretty websites that load really fast. There are incremental benefits to it, to having a website that loads slightly faster than somebody else's website. But it's not as high when people have blazing fast internets on their phones. Because remember, most of the thumb rules around building fast pages and fast websites and fast apps were in an era where everybody had terrible internet and where we had to build everything from scratch. 10 years ago, building a simple app where you just, like I built a job board 10 years ago. I built a company called JobSpire 10 years ago where it's like Naukri.com, right? You could go, if you're an employer, you can hire candidates on one side, and on the opposite side, if you're a candidate, you could find jobs. At that time, we didn't have the support of many of the frameworks that most of you have today. It is a different world. We had to re-engineer some of it that looking today, I could build a job board in like 3 days today. But 10 years ago, it was not that easy. So the point is, and we're not even talking about AI. It's going to change after AI. It's just going to get even easier after AI. But the point is, it's getting a lot easier now. And it's no longer about incredible performance. Very few people, like I know people who are working at Viacom where I know it's about performance, where they'll have some really shitty phone and they have to stream the match, the cricket match, and they have to do it in certain benchmarks for themselves. I get it. And they'll probably have like crores of people watching. Most of you, and I've seen some of your CVs, right? Because on those Reddit groups, you'll put your CV and then you'll ask somebody else to say, why isn't this working? And I can tell you, you're not working on problems of scale yet. You're working in some real estate company that needs, a simple app for some backend stuff. There's like 5 people using it, right? So you're bothering yourself with the wrong things, learning the wrong things, hoping that a large company who needs the scale will hire you. But actually, what you need to do if you want to build your own niche is to do something that looks like it's slightly less popular right now. You need to bet 6 months in the future or maybe a year in the future and hope that's right. And for me this year, a lot of things I have done this year are exactly that. I bet 6 months, a year in the future. And every time I bet on the current, there's things that in the middle of the pandemic, I said, okay, I'm going to bet on the pandemic now. Already too late. So you need 6 months of time to actually build into that role and hope that grows over time, right? And people forget that. It's not you guys and girls who are thinking it's about you learning another framework or you doing this. It's the supply demand curve. It's over the edge. Find another niche. Software is so vast, there are infinite niches. Go find one of those niches instead of just being the next front-end guy. All right, moving on. Now, one big news over the last few weeks is that Mixtral just got dropped, which is an open source model that you can run on your computer that has GPT 3.5-like capability. It is wonderful, A, because I really respect the team. The last time they dropped a model, they said this should be open source, and they just dropped a torrent link. Seriously, they dropped a torrent link on Twitter. And the second time they dropped a model, which is now this new Mixtral, which is a mixture of experts, they dropped a torrent again. They just said, take it, it should be free. And the founder went on radio recently and said they're going to have an open source GPT-4 level model available by next year. And that is wonderful because you can actually run this right now for free. You can download an app on Windows called LM Studio. It's a completely free app. Just search for the Mixtral 7B model. It might not run on some of your computers, but there are also many other models you can try on it. Like any model that gets popular on Hugging Face eventually makes it to LM Studio. You can just search the name, download it. It gives you a chat interface, ask it any question you want. And I think this dependence on paying $20 for GPT or signing in for Bard and all that is no longer necessary with the open source model. And Mixtral is, even though I don't personally believe it's GPT 3.5 level, I did use it. It has some chain of thought errors, but I still think the fact that there's so much progress there is amazing. And LM Studio is sort of like, an app on your computer for you to trial out any other model. Similar to LM Studio, we also have Comfy UI, which many of you have used, heard of, which is a node-based editor for stable diffusion. Well, we made the anime in this tool. And this tool is basically composed of many different nodes, and these nodes itself are different repositories that people come up with. For example, IP adapters to capture my likeness. Without training a model, you can actually do that. You can capture my likeness, feed into a image or a video without actually training a model on me, which we used to do in the past. You can now do that. And every new repository that comes out, Comfy will have an update, and that repository and the models available with it will be available. So you can put it together, you can make an anime. In fact, there's a workflow, okay? And we kind of figured it out ourselves independently from anybody else, although we did take a lot of help from the internet. And now a lot of other people have figured out that workflow. It's the combination of IP adapters for maintaining likeness, and then the combination of animate diff, which allows you to produce multiple frames of motion. That combination is really good for converting video into anime. but it's also great for converting video into 3D. For example, take a look at this. This is a video of Priyal that we had shot. We had made this anime scene. For example, check out this toy/Pixar style re-imitation of Barbie, the movie, where it looks pretty cool. Check it out.
And the Kens really are just better at ruling than the Barbies ever were.
Well, we just took patriarchy and, made a patriarchy.
Well, the output is certainly very good. I'm very confident that the flow, till now the flow that we've had is somebody models this character in 3D or somebody draws this character by hand. And the new flow is you actually shoot the footage first and then put it through one of these AIs that give you either the Pixar style or an animated style, etc., etc. And you'll have different models for each. And that's the world we're entering, and you can do it right now. Hello. Hi. Come say hi. Come say hi. Come say hi. This is our screen, yeah. Come say hi. So I'm shooting a video. I'm not live.
Okay.
So I'm shooting a video. I'm doing a This Week in AI wala thing. Earlier I used to do shorts. I'm getting really irritated with shorts. So I have to do one long form now and they'll clip it out. Yeah, we're getting a much bigger one. Come say hi, come say hi, come say hi. So by the way, we have, I'm no, we're not live, but it'll be recorded.
Okay.
So using,
I'm coming in your video. Oh.
so Mythpat is here and it's not an AI version, sorry. But he's just here to say hi and we proceed in the video now.
Bye.
All right, what's the next thing? The Union Minister for Road Transport and Highways, Nitin Gadkari, has said today publicly that self-driving cars will never be introduced in India. The reason cited by the minister is to safeguard jobs of drivers. Now, that's going to cause a problem because I can already sense that there is going to be a section of society that's going to find this unfair. For example, why are the jobs of drivers being protected when, let's say, a software engineer who is slowly seeing GPT chip away at his advantage, why is he not protected? And I understand the math. I know that India really relies on delivery boys and drivers and truck drivers, and that makes a huge chunk of the GDP. Plus, so many jobs are given, right? You don't want to take away those jobs. And compared to that, software engineering looks really tiny. But software engineering, design, art, till now, they're all very niche job roles, right? Certain elite have had access to those job roles. So nobody really cares about that falling. But the truth with AI is eventually that's going to pervade everywhere. Right? Eventually, it is going to be most generic jobs done on a computer. And we're fairly certain we're going to get there. I still feel like that software engineer or that designer is still going to feel unfair. Why is the government protecting one class of jobs and not the other? Is it just sheer number? Because at some point, there's going to be jobs that are very critical to the economy, which create a lot of jobs in India, but we'll still have to choose. The government will still have to choose, is this AI protected or is this not AI protected? It's a very dangerous precedent by saying we will ban automated cars forever. And I know a lot of you will argue whether, okay, is automation even going to happen? Can they drive on Indian roads? And first of all, a lot of that is a myth. Like a lot of people say, oh, India, you can never drive a driverless car in India. But what we have learned, especially this year, is that computer vision is getting really good, better than human eyes. And more importantly, a computer is just far more reactive. So paradoxically, a computer might be better suited to drive Indian roads than human beings. Now, till we see a working prototype, I'm going to measure, I'm not going to say anything that is too forward looking, but it is possible that at some point, in the US, we already have driverless cars and they work. To be able to combat Indian roads, eventually somebody will build a custom model. It's only a matter of time. And the fact that the government is protecting one set of jobs and not the others, it confuses me a little. And you need to have a very clear policy around this. And I have a policy around this. I've thought it through, right? So I've spent some time thinking through. I'm not saying I'm right, but this is just a policy. I think all jobs that are internal to the country, where the competition is internal, then you can choose to prevent AI from playing there. But all jobs that are dependent on export, where we're competing with all the other countries in the world, there you should allow the use of AI. Let me explain to you why. Let's say there's a project available in some country. Let's say there's a project available in the US. That company can go to many different providers, right? And they end up coming, let's say, to TCS. But just like TCS, I'm sure there are people from other countries competing, bidding for this project. Now, if TCS goes in and it's banned from using AI, then the cost will obviously be very high because you need a lot of talent there, right? So using AI is actually a competitive advantage for TCS. Like think about us. We use AI to make content for different companies. And we will use every advantage we can to reduce the price of producing that content. because we are also competing with other companies across the world that are generating content. And we need to be competitive because I know that if there's a US client or a Dubai client coming and spending on me versus some other company across the world, I am bringing some revenue for India and I will pay tax on it, right? That's why exports is the holy grail. We are always counting our GDP by how much export can we actually create as a country. And there is competition for this. Because if I lose the deal, some guy in the US will win the deal and that revenue goes to the US. So it's fair for me to use any advantage I can if I'm competing on the global scale. But if it's internal, if it's only inside India, if every group of Mumbai taxi cab drivers is only competing against the others, then it's fine. They can compete on price, they can compete on quality of services, etc., etc. But it's very difficult for them to compete with AI. So in this internal rule set of India, you can choose to say, okay, this competition is only going to happen internally, then, well, there we can prevent the usage of AI. This is one policy and we already do this for a lot of things. We definitely do this for tax, where if you are selling a service abroad, you get lots of tax rebates. All right, last thing for today. I did a quick review of the Humane pin and I said, while it looks good, I'm not going to buy it because I thought the latency is just not going to be good enough. Because we had run some projects and the latency of you speaking to the machine understanding what you're saying, which is transcribing whatever you're saying into text and then, sending that to GPT and then getting a response, the entire round trip takes 3 to 4 seconds, probably longer. But the thing about AI is the astounding pace of innovation is mental. There's a company called Deepgram and they've been working on text-to-speech models for a long time and they finally have a real-time model. Now, this is not a gimmick. I actually tried it. It's really good. I can speak to it not just in English, but also in Hindi. The model is called Nova 2. It's very, very fast. And we are actively using it in production. And now that this thing is there, this real-time ability to speak back to you, things are going to change. Now you can actually do things like virtual girlfriends. Now you can actually do things like action figures that talk to you. Because until now, you speaking to an Alexa, waiting a few seconds, then getting a response, that will bore you out. But if it's nearly instant, where your speech is being transcribed instantly, which in simple language is you sending a text to GPT, you sending a prompt to GPT and getting a response, that speed is also much faster. A, because GPT has come out with GPT Turbo that's faster and all of that, but also there are plenty of smaller models. Like Stable Zephyr is a 3 bill model. There's a Phi 2 model that's also a small model. Google Gemini also has a model called Gemini Nano. These are all very small models that can work extremely fast and get you the results very quickly. So combine real-time text-to-speech with these fast models, and I think you have as close to real-time latency as possible. And one of the cool things with having this real-time technology is now I can put one of my dreams into reality. Like one of the dreams I had was, I don't know if you've seen Harry Potter, there are these paintings on the walls that can actually talk to you. They can look at you, they can maintain eye contact with you, they can talk to you, they can respond to what you're thinking, they have personalities inside of them. And we already know how to do this with the models. We already know how to fine-tune models. We already do that for certain companies. So I run a company called EOS. Under that, we have a company called EOS Labs that purely creates fine-tuned models for companies across the world. We work with a lot of companies in India doing it. So we're fairly confident on the software side of things. But we've always been keen to do it on the hardware side of things. And until this latency problem got solved, if it was 6 seconds, if you talk to it and it responds 6 seconds later, that is boring. So we waited for the perfect moment. And now that Deepgram is out, now that it seems like it's possible to do it real time, we are now working on the hardware. So let me show you something. So this is our base prototyping kit. It's based on the Raspberry Pi and there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. But for now, our painting is going to be very tiny. It's going to be a small little character. And the use cases for this are incredible, right? Like I can have Chanakya available that you can talk to at any time. On a painting, you can have a painting of the smartest, script writer in India that you can just ask while writing a script, hey, ye kaisa karna hai? Or a very smart maths teacher who can help your kids actually learn something throughout the day. So I think toys are about to get much smarter and we definitely want to take a hardware bet. But I kept saying that hardware bets are risky because the margins are low, you probably end up making no money and Samsung might come tomorrow and kick your ass. Otherwise, there's really no point of doing this if you're not trying harder and harder things over time. So wish us luck. There's a very high chance we'll fail and we'll keep you in the loop of this project. Like as we learn more things, probably do a small series of videos on this channel about what we're building and hopefully you get to build it with us in a way, digitally, virtually. And just on cue, one of the things that's taken the internet by storm is this thing called Digi, which is a romantic partner that you can have available on your phone anytime you want. And there's been lots said about this. People are like, no, I don't want a partner that is completely digital. No, I don't want a partner that says yes to everything I want. No, I'm not going to pay for a partner that's perfect. And I agree with all this. And the people who make this are going to be smart about this, and they're going to make you pay in very unconventional ways, which means that they're going to purposely make that digital partner be upset with you. And I saw this on Twitter where somebody said, you're going to pay to roll back your conversation. Let's say you screwed up the conversation. And we've all had that in our life where we've known somebody and we've ruined the conversation, and we go back in our head and we were like, maybe we could have had this better. Now you will be able to pay for it. You can screw up the conversation with the bot, and it will be part of the model to get upset with you. And if you want to roll back the conversation to a previous point, you pay to blank out its memory for that period. What a dystopian world to live in. But also I know the loneliness problem, at least in India, is insane. I'm not going to say whether it's a good thing or bad thing, but I think having some hope for the loneliest of us is necessary, and maybe this will help solve that. But I also think for the people who are not already lonely, who have friends, they're now going to spend a lot more time with these things and therefore spend less time with the real people in their life. One last thing, promise, huh? Okay, so ByteDance has been caught for taking the outputs from the GPT model and then using that to train their own model, which is something you can do. You can actually do that. You can take the outputs from one model. As long as you have the input prompt and the output, you can train a new model to perform in a similar fashion. So how did OpenAI respond to this? They found it unfair and they immediately banned ByteDance's account because OpenAI explicitly states you cannot train on our outputs. See, I'm not the biggest fan of China, but there is a little bit of doglapan in this. Because look, OpenAI never asked any of us, never asked any of the writers on the internet before using their work. They just scraped the entire open internet. I'm sure they scraped some of the content created by Chinese individuals too. And they never gave them any permission or compensation. They trained technically on their outputs, right? So if that's fair, and if you're anyway creating a model on some other human's outputs, your outputs are fair game if somebody else wants to use it to train their own model. Now, I'm not going to get into the ethics of whether OpenAI should or should not have trained on the public internet. It's already public. People want Google to archive it. I get all of that. But to ban people for training on your outputs when you're guilty of the same mistake, in my opinion, that's doglapan. And with that, we end this episode. I hope you guys learned something. I like having this long-form set of conversations with you. You may not agree with all my thoughts. And I get it. Like, we are living in a more and more polarized internet. You will not agree with most of my thoughts, and that's okay. We should agree that at the end of every conversation, 10-20% of what I said, you might not need to agree with, and we move on with that, right? And I feel long form is the best format to do that. If you like this, please subscribe. I'm going to keep putting out more stuff. Bye.